Try to remember last Tuesday. Now try to remember a random Tuesday from when you were 9 years old. One of those memories barely exists. The other might still be vivid enough to walk through in your mind. That gap is not random. It's the entire reason your life feels like it's speeding up, and once you understand it, you'll never experience time the same way again. Most people blame this on being busy. Work, responsibilities, a calendar that never empties. That explanation feels true. It is also almost entirely wrong. Bored adults experience the exact same compression as exhausted ones. Retired people feel it. People on long vacations feel it. The schedule isn't the variable. Something else is changing, and it's been changing since the day you were born. In 1877, a French philosopher named Paul Janet proposed something strange for his time. He argued that the way you perceive a stretch of time isn't fixed. It's proportional. To a 5-year-old, 1 year is 20% of their entire life. To a 50-year-old, 1 year is 2%. The math never lies. The same 365 days get smaller every single year you're alive, relative to everything that came before it. This is called proportional theory. It explains part of the puzzle. But it doesn't explain why a single afternoon at 9 years old can feel longer in memory than an entire month at 30. For that, you need to look inside the brain itself. In 2017, neuroscientist Itzhak Fried at UCLA discovered something inside the hippocampus that nobody had directly observed before. Specific neurons that fire only when you experience the passage of time. Researchers now call them time cells. They activate in sequence, laying down a kind of timestamp on every new experience, stitching moments together into something your brain can later unpack as, this happened, then this. Here's the part that changes everything. Time cells fire most actively when an experience is new. Unfamiliar. When you're 9 years old, almost everything is novel. A new school year, a new friend, a new bike, a new flavor of cereal. Your brain is laying down dense timestamps constantly, because it has almost nothing to compare anything to yet. By the time you're 30, you've already had a job like this one. A commute like this one. A Tuesday like this one. Your brain stops bothering to timestamp it in detail. Why would it? Nothing new is happening that needs to be remembered separately from the 100 Tuesdays before it. This is why you can't remember last Tuesday. Not because your memory is failing. Because your brain decided, correctly, that there was nothing in it worth a timestamp. And here's where it gets stranger. In the late 1990s, neuroscientist David Eagleman ran an experiment that sounds almost insane. He paid volunteers to fall 150 feet backward into a safety net, wearing a device on their wrist that flashed numbers too fast for the human eye to normally read. He wanted to know something specific. Does time actually slow down during a terrifying fall, the way people describe it? Or does it only feel that way afterward? The numbers on the wrist device were the test. If time genuinely slowed down for the brain in the moment, falling subjects should have been able to read them. They couldn't. Not one. What Eagleman found was that time doesn't actually slow down while you're falling. Your brain just records far more detail than usual, because the experience is maximally novel and maximally threatening. Afterward, when you replay a memory with that much density packed into it, it feels like it must have taken longer than it did. This is the same mechanism running your entire life, just in slow motion instead of free fall. Childhood is dense with novelty, so it gets recorded in high resolution, so it feels long in memory. Adulthood is dense with repetition, so it gets recorded in low resolution, so it feels like it disappears. There's a name for the cruel twist hiding inside this. Author Claudia Hammond called it the holiday paradox. A trip somewhere unfamiliar feels like it flies by while you're living it, because you're overwhelmed and disoriented by everything new. But weeks later, looking back, that same week feels enormous. Far bigger than a regular week at home. Because your brain packed it with so many new timestamps. Time runs on two completely different clocks. One clock for how fast it feels while you're inside it. A second, opposite clock for how long it feels once you look back. Novelty speeds up the first clock and slows down the second. Routine does the exact reverse. You are living inside both clocks at once, every single day, without ever being told the rules. And there's one more layer underneath all of this. One that's almost never talked about. A 2019 study by physicist Adrian Bayan, published in the European Review, proposed a physical explanation sitting alongside the psychological one. As you age, the physical pathways your neurons use to send signals get longer and more complex. Literally, your brain has more wiring in it at 40 than it did at 4. Signals have farther to travel and more branching connections to navigate along the way. Bayan's theory suggests that this added distance slightly slows the rate at which your brain processes new images and sensations. A child's brain, with shorter, simpler pathways, processes more frames of reality per second. An adult brain, more complex but slightly slower per signal, processes fewer frames per second of lived experience, compressed into the same stretch of clock time. That's not a metaphor. That may be a literal description of what's happening inside your skull right now, as you watch this. There's a chemical piece to this too, and it might be the most personal one. Dopamine doesn't just make you feel good. Researchers studying internal timing, including work led by psychologist Peter Mangan, found that dopamine levels appear to function like the tempo of an internal clock. Higher dopamine, faster internal clock, more ticks recorded per real-world second. Lower dopamine, slower internal clock, fewer ticks recorded for the exact same stretch of real time. Dopamine production peaks in your 20s and declines gradually after that, year over year, for the rest of your life. Children aren't just flooded with novelty. They're running on a faster internal clock too, one that's ticking more often per second than yours is right now. Two compounding effects, both pointing the same direction. More novelty, more dopamine, more ticks, more timestamps. Less novelty, less dopamine, fewer ticks, fewer timestamps. Your brain isn't malfunctioning as you get older. It's simply doing less work, because chemically and structurally, it has less reason to do more. This is also why a single intense year, a move to a new city, a breakup, a first year at a new job, can feel strangely long in memory even as an adult. You temporarily flooded your system with the same conditions a child lives in permanently. Novelty. Threat. Unfamiliar streets. New names to learn. For that 1 year, your internal clock sped back up, and your hippocampus started timestamping again like it used to. Which tells you something uncomfortable. The slowdown isn't really about age at all. Age is just the thing that usually comes packaged with repetition. Comfort. Routine. The same commute, the same rooms, the same conversations on a loop. Time doesn't actually speed up as you get older. You simply stop doing things that are new often enough to keep recording it in detail. So your childhood wasn't longer because you were happier, or freer, or had nothing to worry about. It was longer because your brain was a new machine encountering a new world, building dense, high-resolution timestamps for almost everything it touched. And your adulthood isn't shorter because you're failing at something. It's shorter because your brain, efficient and experienced, has quietly decided most of it doesn't need remembering. Which means the years aren't actually disappearing. They're just not being filed. Think back to the start of this. Last Tuesday, gone. A random Tuesday at 9 years old, still half visible somewhere in your mind. You assumed that was about memory failing with age. It isn't. It's your brain making a calculated decision, thousands of times a day, about what deserves a timestamp and what doesn't. Routine gets discarded before it's even finished happening. Novelty gets filed away in detail, sometimes for the rest of your life. Right now, today, this exact Tuesday, is either becoming a memory dense enough to slow your future sense of time back down, or it's about to vanish into the pile of every other Tuesday that already has. You won't know which one happened until it's already too late to choose differently.